3 days after my sister stole the man I was about to marry, my mother looked me in the eyes and said something I will never forget. She told me he was never meant for me anyway. At that moment I felt like my entire life had been ripped away. 5 years later, I returned to my hometown in a luxury car worth more than my sister and her husband made in several years combined. The look on their faces was worth every painful mile of the journey that got me there. My name is Madison Carter. 7 years ago, I was 22 years old, fresh out of college, and completely unaware of how far jealousy could push someone. Growing up, there were always two versions of reality in my family. There was the version where my older sister Savannah could do no wrong, and there was the version where I existed somewhere in the background. Savannah was beautiful, outgoing, and naturally charming. People loved her within minutes of meeting her. My mother treated her like she hung the moon. Every accomplishment Savannah achieved became a family celebration. Every mistake she made came with excuses and sympathy. Meanwhile, I was the quiet daughter who worked hard, earned good grades, and stayed out of trouble. Unfortunately, none of those things earned attention in our house. I learned very early that life would never be fair. My father was kind, but he avoided conflict at all costs. Whenever my mother favored Savannah, he simply stayed silent. That silence taught me to keep my head down and rely on myself. Things began to change when I met Ethan. We met in a small coffee shop near my college campus. What started as a simple conversation turned into hours of talking. He was thoughtful, intelligent, and genuinely interested in what I had to say. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. Ethan never treated me like I was second best. He listened when I spoke and encouraged my dreams. We spent the next 3 years building a life together. It was not flashy or dramatic, it was real. We talked about marriage, children, and the future we wanted to create. I honestly believed I had finally found the person who would stand beside me no matter what. Then I introduced him to my family. At first Savannah seemed supportive. She smiled, laughed at his jokes, and acted like the perfect sister. Looking back, I can see the warning signs clearly. She paid too much attention to him. She always found reasons to be near him. She sent him messages that felt oddly personal. Whenever we attended family gatherings, she somehow managed to place herself at the center of every conversation involving Ethan. My mother encouraged it without realizing how obvious she was being. She constantly paired them together during games and family events. If Ethan and I arrived somewhere together, Savannah always found a way to pull him into separate conversations. At first I ignored it. I trusted Ethan completely. I never imagined my own sister would betray me. Then strange things started happening. One evening Ethan showed me a text message Savannah had sent him. It was not openly inappropriate, but it crossed a line. She referenced details about him that she should not have remembered. Ethan admitted it felt strange. We laughed it off and moved on. Unfortunately, that was only the beginning. Over time, Savannah started telling Ethan stories about me. She described me as controlling and difficult. She exaggerated old arguments and painted herself as the victim. She planted tiny seeds of doubt whenever she had the opportunity. The worst part was that I had no idea it was happening. While Savannah worked behind the scenes, I was planning the happiest moment of my life. I had secretly purchased a beautiful sapphire ring and arranged a romantic mountain getaway. I intended to propose to Ethan myself. I had spent months imagining that moment. The proposal never happened. The night before our trip, Ethan sat on the edge of our bed with a look I had never seen before. His face was pale, and his eyes were filled with pain. Then he told me he knew about the other man. At first I thought he was joking. He was not. Savannah had convinced him that I was cheating. She claimed she had discovered months of secret messages between me and a coworker. According to her story, I was planning to leave Ethan after finding someone more successful. I was completely stunned. None of it was true. I begged him to show me the evidence. He told me Savannah had shown him screenshots and messages before deleting them. She claimed she only wanted him to know the truth. It was the perfect lie. She had created evidence that no longer existed. No matter what I said, Ethan believed her. Watching him choose her word over mine shattered something inside me. I tried everything. I explained, I pleaded, I cried, nothing mattered. A week later he moved out. Then my mother called. Instead of comforting me, she calmly explained that Ethan was never right for me anyway. It felt like she had been waiting for my relationship to fail. The following months were some of the darkest of my life. I went through the motions of work, sleep, and survival. Everything felt empty. Then, one evening, a friend sent me a screenshot. It was Savannah and Ethan, engaged. The engagement ring on her finger looked painfully familiar, because it was mine. The sapphire ring I had purchased for Ethan to propose with somehow ended up on Savannah's hand. That was the moment everything changed. Instead of breaking down, I became numb. I realized there was nothing left for me in that town. Within weeks, I packed a bag, quit my job, deleted my social media accounts, and disappeared. I drove west with no destination and no plan. For the next 2 years, I drifted from city to city, working whatever jobs I could find. I served drinks in Texas, worked in coffee shops in Colorado, and rented tiny rooms wherever I could afford them. It was lonely and difficult, but it also forced me to discover who I was without my family. During those years, I returned to an idea I had been carrying since college, a software platform designed to help companies improve logistics and supply chain efficiency. Every spare hour went into learning programming, researching markets, and building prototypes. I lived cheaply and saved every dollar possible. Eventually, I met a talented developer online who shared my vision. Together, we launched a startup. The first year was brutal. We almost failed multiple times. Then everything changed. A major client signed on, then another, then another. The company grew faster than either of us expected. Investors became interested. Revenue exploded. Within a few years, our business was generating millions of dollars annually. For the first time in my life, I was truly successful. I owned a beautiful home near Seattle, traveled when I wanted, and answered to nobody. That should have been the end of the story. Instead, my past came looking for me. One day, I received an email from my mother inviting me to a family reunion. The message was written as if nothing had happened. She casually mentioned that Savannah and Ethan would be attending with their young son. I deleted the email immediately. A few weeks later, my business team informed me that someone had been attempting to contact me through fake investor accounts. After some investigation, we traced the source. It was Savannah. She was actively trying to locate me. Curious, I contacted an old friend from my hometown and asked about her life. What he told me shocked me. Savannah and Ethan were drowning in debt. Her failed business ventures had consumed their savings. Their mortgage was falling apart, their vehicles were unreliable. Ethan was reportedly considering divorce. Worst of all, they had moved back into my parents' house. Suddenly, the family reunion invitation made sense. They were desperate, and for the first time, I was not. I decided to attend. Not for revenge, not for drama, for closure. On the day of the reunion, I rented an expensive black luxury sedan and drove into town. When I arrived, nobody recognized me. Years of growth had changed everything about the way I looked and carried myself. I parked near the main pavilion and calmly walked toward the gathering. Then, people started noticing. Whispers spread through the crowd. My mother froze. Savannah stared at me in disbelief. Ethan looked like he had seen a ghost. Then fate delivered one final gift. Their vehicle had broken down a few blocks away. While I stood beside a luxury car, they arrived late, frustrated, and embarrassed after struggling with a worn-out minivan. The contrast could not have been more dramatic. Throughout the afternoon, everyone pretended to act normal. My mother gave speeches about family unity. Savannah talked about resilience and overcoming challenges. I remained silent. Then something happened that nobody expected. Ethan stood up. The entire gathering became quiet. With his son standing beside him, he finally told the truth. He admitted that Savannah had lied years earlier. He explained how she fabricated messages and manipulated him into believing I had cheated. He confessed that he had allowed his insecurities to cloud his judgment. The crowd listened in complete silence. My mother looked horrified. Savannah looked furious. Ethan turned toward me and apologized publicly. He said he knew forgiveness was unlikely, but he needed me to hear the truth. When he finished, nobody knew what to say. I slowly walked to the microphone. Every person at the reunion watched me. They expected anger. They expected revenge. Instead, I gave them honesty. I told them I was not there to clear my name because I no longer cared what they believed. I explained that I had spent years thinking I was not good enough for my family. Eventually, I realized the problem was never me. The problem was that honesty has very little value in families that reward performance over character. Then I thanked everyone for teaching me an important lesson. Sometimes, the greatest gift people can give you is a reason to leave. After that, I walked away. No arguments, no shouting, no tears, just peace. As I drove away, I finally felt free. The funny thing about revenge is that people imagine it as something explosive. They picture dramatic confrontations and public humiliation. Real revenge is much quieter. Real revenge is rebuilding your life so completely that the people who hurt you become irrelevant. My sister spent years stealing things she thought would make her happy. She stole my relationship, my future plans, and my trust. What she never understood was that she could never steal my ability to start over. Years earlier, I left town with a suitcase and a broken heart. I returned with success, confidence, and a life I built entirely on my own. As I looked in the mirror during the drive home, I realized something that made me smile. For my entire childhood, I had lived in Savannah's shadow. But on that day, standing at that reunion, the truth finally became impossible to ignore. She was the one standing in mine.